Hello students, now we are going to start with the second part of elements, compounds and mixtures. So what are mixtures? They can be defined as a kind of matter which are formed by mixing two or more pure substances which may be elements or compounds in any proportion such that they do not undergo any chemical change and they still retain their individual properties. That is why they are also called as impure substances. Example: air, milk, tap water. Air is a mixture of oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide gases mainly, and it also contains water vapor, dust particles and traces of inert gases. The mixtures are of two types: homogeneous mixture, where the components are uniformly distributed and cannot be seen separately. Example: salt solution, tap water, milk. Heterogeneous mixture, the components are not uniformly distributed, can be easily seen separately. Soil is a mixture of many elements and compounds. Sand and stone, mud and water, they are heterogeneous mixtures. Now you see here some beautiful facts are given here. Tap water is not pure. Why? Because it contains small amounts of dissolved salts and air which we cannot see. They add taste to water. For the same reason, boiled water is tasteless. Ink, it is a mixture of many dyes, pigments, okay, depending on required sets and applications. Milk, it is made up of fats, carbohydrates, proteins, salts, vitamins and water, present in different proportion. Cream floats on milk when it is cooled after boiling. You all have seen this at home. Honey, it contains sugar and other substances. Fruit juice contains sugar, salts and other organic compounds. Don't think that all compounds are harmful. Most of our food contains organic compounds. Medicines are made by mixing different pure substances in different proportions. Alloys, they are homogeneous mixtures of two or more metals or non-metals prepared by mixing them in molten state. Brass, it is an alloy of copper and zinc. Bronze, it is an alloy of copper, tin and zinc. I think so. You have seen brass utensils, which is used for worshipping, for decorative purposes, and I think so. You remember that medals are made up of bronze, statues are made up of bronze. Now, the characteristics of mixtures are: it contains pure substances, two or more, which exist together without any chemical combination. They may be homogeneous or heterogeneous. The components vary in their proportions. They do not have fixed melting and boiling point. Okay, the components of a mixture can be separated by simple physical methods like filtration, distillation, etc. And no energy change takes place during the formation of mixtures. Now let's see the differences between compounds and mixture. I'll take only the keywords. Compound, it is pure. Mixture, impure. Compound, homogeneous. Mixture, homogeneous or heterogeneous. Compound, fixed composition. And mixture, no fixed composition. Compound involves a change in energy. Mixture does not involve any change in energy. Compounds have a specific set of properties. Mixtures do not have any specific set of properties, as the constituents of mixture still retain their properties. Components of compounds can be separated only by complex chemical processes. Components of mixtures are separated by simple physical methods of separation. Now, what is the purpose of separating the components of a mixture? To remove unwanted and harmful substances, to obtain pure and useful substances. So, the principle of separation depends upon types of mixtures and their physical states, size, color, shape of the mixture, their characteristic properties such as boiling point, melting point, solubility, density, the ability to sublime. Now we'll start with the separation of solid-solid mixtures, and the first one is hand picking. Okay, so this I think so you all have seen this at home. How do we separate small stones from a mixture of rice rice which contains small stones in it, or pulses which contain small stones in it? What do? We hand pick, isn't it? So this method is used when the quantity of mixture is small and it forms a small portion of the mixture, and it should be large enough in size, and it should be of different color, shape, so that we can easily pick it up. Winnowing, the process of separation of grain from husk and hay with the help of wind is called winnowing. It is used to separate light solids from heavier ones. Usually it is used by farmers. For example, we take a mixture of rice and husk. So when it is allowed to fall from a height, rice grains being heavier fall vertically, while husk gets blown away by air and forms a heap at a small distance away from the heap of rice. In this way, rice is separated from husk. Magnetic separation. This method is used when one of the component is magnetic. For example, iron, cobalt or nickel may be one of the component. So mixtures of iron and sulfur, iron and sand can easily be separated by magnetic separation. As you can see here, only the iron is attracted by the magnet if we take a mixture of iron and sulfur. Gravitational method is used when one of the component is much heavier than water and the other component is lighter than water. For example, if we take a mixture of sawdust and sand, okay, and add to water, what happens? Sawdust floats on the surface of water and the sand settles down due to the difference in densities. Next is sublimation. You all know it is a process in which a solid changes directly into its vapor on heating, and on cooling again the vapors form the solid. Example: camphor, naphthalene, iodine, ammonium chloride. So this method is used for solid mixtures in which at least one of the substance can sublime. Mixture of sand and iodine, common salt and ammonium chloride, etc. can be separated by sublimation. Next is solvent extraction method. Solvent is a medium in which a substance can be dissolved. So this method is used when one of the solid component is soluble in a liquid. For example, if we take a mixture of sand and salt, salt will get dissolved in water and sand will settle down. Sedimentation and decantation. So what is sedimentation? The settling down of suspended, insoluble, heavy, solid particles in a solid liquid mixture when left undisturbed is called sedimentation. The solid which settles down is called as the sediment, whereas the clear liquid is called as the supernatant liquid. So the process of pouring out the clear liquid without disturbing the sediment is called decantation. So this method is used for a heterogeneous mixture of a solid and a liquid, where the solid component is insoluble and heavier than the liquid component. For example, a mixture of sand and water. Filtration, it is used to separate insoluble solid particles from a liquid solid mixture by passing it through a filter. The insoluble residue which remains on the filter paper or any filter is called as the residue, while the liquid which passes through the filter is called as the filtrate. So this method is used for separating the components of solid liquid mixtures in which solids are insoluble in the liquid. For example, chalk and water, muddy water. The common filters are filter paper, charcoal which is used in water filters, gas wool, layers of sand and gravel which is used for the purification of underground water. Now, evaporation is the process of converting a liquid into its vapor either by exposing it to air or by heating. So here you can see, if we take a salt solution, on heating, water evaporates and salt will be left behind. Okay, so sea water is collected in shallow beds and allowed to evaporate in the sun. When all the water is evaporated, salt is left behind. So by this method we get only the solid, whereas what happens to the liquid? It escapes in the air in the form of vapors. Crystallization is a process in which slow evaporation of a solution containing more of the solid component is done. Now, what are crystals? Crystals are the solid particles with definite shape and size. They are lustrous or shiny too. Example, sugar particles are cubical. So, pure sugar is obtained from a solution by crystallization. Sugar solution is heated. When less of water is left, it is cooled. So what will happen on cooling? Sugar starts separating in the form of crystals. Distillation is the process of converting a liquid into vapor by heating and subsequent condensation of the vapor back into liquid. So this method is used to separate the components of solid liquid mixture in which both solid and liquid are recovered. When the solution is heated, the liquid evaporates in the form of vapors which pass through the condenser and get condensed into pure liquid, which is called as the distillate. So as you can see here in the figure, this is the round bottom conical flask where we take the salt solution. On heating, water will vaporize. The water vapor will pass through the delivery tube, which is surrounded by a jacket which contains cold water. So the water vapor gets cooled down and condenses to form water droplets which is collected in the receiver. So as the reaction goes on, it proceeds. We will get salt in the conical flask and the water in the receiver. So tap water can easily be purified by this method, and the pure water which is so obtained is called as distilled water. Separation of a mixture of iodine and alcohol can also be done by distillation. Now, centrifugation is the method of separating solids from liquids where the mixture is homogeneous. This is also called churning. So an apparatus called centrifuge is used for this purpose. The mixture is placed in the centrifuge tube and rotated at a high speed. So what happens? The heavier solid particles move towards the bottom and the light solid particles float on the liquid. So this results in the separation of substances of different densities. Cream is separated from milk by this method. At home, we use mixers or traditional churners to separate cream from milk. It is used in dairies as well. In washing machine, this principle is used to squeeze out water from wet clothes. This method is also used in diagnostic laboratories for testing blood and urine. Now let's see separation of liquid-liquid mixtures. Liquid-liquid immiscible mixtures like a mixture of kerosene oil and water. Now suppose we take this mixture in a separating funnel. So after some time what will happen is that water which is heavier or denser settles down, okay, and kerosene remains on the top. You see the two layers can be distinctly seen. When the two layers are distinct, we open the stopper and the water can be collected in a beaker, and what will be left behind in the separating funnel? Kerosene oil. Okay. Then comes fractional distillation. The process of distillation, it is used to separate the components of a homogeneous liquid-liquid mixtures on the basis of the difference in their boiling points. But the difference in the boiling point must be 25 degrees Celsius or more. So a mixture of water and alcohol can be separated by this method. As alcohol boils at a lower temperature, for this we need a fractionating column which is fitted over the distilling flask, so that if water vapors move up along with alcohol, it should condense and come back to the flask. So you see here round bottom conical flasks in which the mixture of alcohol and water is taken. So alcohol, since it has a lower boiling point, it arises. This fractionating column is used for uniform collection of the vapors of alcohol. And by chance, if any water molecule converts into water vapor and comes here, it again trickles back into the round bottom conical flask. Then what happens is that the vapors of alcohol pass through the delivery tube, get cooled down, and hence it is collected in a conical flask. And what will be left behind out here in the round bottom conical flask? Water will be left behind. Now there is a modern technique called chromatography, which is used to separate the colored components of a mixture when the components are very similar in their properties. The name chromatography means color writing. It is named so because it was used to separate mixtures containing colored components only. But nowadays this technique is applied to colorless substances as well. So the process of separating different dissolved constituents of a mixture by their adsorption. Adsorption means absorption only on the top layer on an appropriate material is called chromatography. So this method is based on the difference of rate of absorption of different components on the surface of a suitable adsorbent. Common adsorbents used are filter paper, silica gel, etc. And the common solvents used are water, ethyl alcohol, acetic acid, etc. So the components of ink are separated by this method. Ink is a mixture of different dyes which are separated by chromatography, because some of the dyes are less soluble and some are more soluble in a solvent. Now, what are the advantages of chromatography? A very small quantity of the substance can be separated. Components with very similar physical and chemical properties also can be separated. It identifies the different constituents of a mixture. It also helps in quantitative estimation of components of a mixture. Now, what are the applications of chromatography? To separate colors in a dye, drugs from blood, pigments from natural colors, to purify many industrial products. Thank you.